Good afternoon. Mr. Pundy and I here just wanted to give you some video feedback for your latest discussion board post. Let me put him down. He can go off and wander in the woods. I hope some of you find the video feedback helpful. I try to vary the content between a lot of writing, some PowerPoints, blog posts, and the videos. Sometimes I think it's just easier if I talk to you. I really enjoyed reading your discussion board posts. I think you're really getting a lot of good information and thinking about how to apply comprehensible input. To me, this is such an important component of teaching our English language learners. And I know it's something I've been fortunate enough to use when I've been teaching in schools around the world. I find a smile, a friendly face, lots of gestures, and an openness can really go a long way. Excuse me, I'm using a lot of comprehensible input here to swat away the bugs in Upper Michigan. I also found it interesting, someone said specifically, and many of you alluded to it, that best practices for our English language learners are not add-ons to what we already do. They're just good teaching practices. And these good teaching practices help everyone. When we slow our rate of speech, when we use a lot of gestures, when we add pictures, when we add video, all of these teaching tools are best practices for everyone, including our English language learners. I thought it was so interesting that many of you noted the importance of a survey at the beginning of the year. Oh, how I wish I had done this many years ago when I was a young teacher just starting out. I was working in a school in a high school in Massachusetts, and we had a young man who didn't seem to speak English come into our program. He was in the 9th grade. I don't know why, but we never contacted his family. We never had any information about him. We thought he spoke possibly French from one of the Caribbean islands. Well, after about 6 weeks of school, we found out he spoke English just fine and dandy. So these are important things for us to do. Many of you also talked about the importance of understanding that what our vocabulary word for something might be is very different from what the vocabulary word might be in a different country or culture. For example, we can all think about pop and soda, or if you're from Massachusetts, you can call it tonic. I'm not wearing a sweatshirt today because I don't need one, but if I were, I would call it a sweatshirt. My son, who went to school in the UK, calls it a jumper. So, different ways of using the vocabulary. We also discussed a little bit, some of you did, about books and the importance of using good books with children. Now, this is also very cultural. When I was working in rural Cambodia, I would often go into schools and ask to see those government-supplied textbooks for elementary school students. I remember once at the end of their school year, I was in a school and I said, well, gosh, where are the textbooks? And I was led into a storage room, and there they were, all piled up, still in shrink wrap. And I said, didn't you use these books during this school year? And the response was, no, we were afraid the children would ruin them. And so there are different ways that we all look at books, and sometimes you have to help families understand that we do expect our children to use books, and little rips, little tears, those are to be expected. It just shows a book is well loved. I love that many of you picked up on the language experience approach. This is something that many years ago when I was an undergraduate, that's how long ago it was, we used. We had children tell us their stories. We wrote them down. The children wrote underneath and then read them back to us. I think that was a wonderful way to support literacy for some students. I did have one little girl who entirely used the language experience approach to learn to read. And she was a native English speaker. But I have used this approach with our English language learners in 4th and 5th grade and found it very helpful. I also loved the point that many of you made that assessments guide instruction. They're really more for us, I think, as teachers. They're not to give a score to a child or to grade a child. They're to say to us, here's where you need to start. Let me just take a little bit of time and talk about assessments as well. I was struggling with what I was going to do for discussion board 9, as I like to have them be responsive to what you've said in your previous discussion board posts. I thought about doing an entire discussion board post on word study assessment for English language learners. And then yesterday I was in conversation with other instructors for our Read 609 course, which I know some of you will be taking, I believe, next year. I checked your transcripts to make sure you hadn't already taken it, and you haven't. We are going to be using this assessment for English language learners, word study, in the Read 609 course. So I thought it best to leave it for that course, and we will really delve into it when you take 609. And then finally today, somebody wrote about how teachers can often be left feeling defeated. And I know this can unfortunately be the case because we are constantly asking our teachers to do more and more and respond to more and more needs of children. And I just want to say to you that you are doing enough. You are doing so much. I mean, here you are. You're enrolled in a master's level course, and I can tell you all care so much. And we, as a country and as a graduate program at Towson University, I feel we need to acknowledge all that you do, and we need to be culturally responsive to you as a community of teachers and say to you, you are doing so much, and we appreciate you.